Welcome to the Coaching Table. I'm Thomas Thompson, Executive Leadership Coach and Consultant with Lead Self, Lead Others. And the Coaching Table is a weekly conversation I've created to help leaders like you have the conversations that you're not having so we can keep you moving forward. And today's conversation centers around the word agency. A few years ago, I was standing on a corner in Dublin, Ireland. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I was trying to find St. Patrick's Cathedral. I wanted to go check it out. And I didn't have a data plan on my phone, so GPS was out of the question. It was kind of an old school map, figuring things out. And I realized standing on this corner that I could go left and go down a few blocks to get to the cathedral, or I could go right and go down a few blocks to get to the cathedral. And this has rarely happened to me, but I felt like in that moment that God said to me, "Which way do you want to go?" And I thought, that's amazing. I'd like to, I'm going to go left. And I went left and I found the cathedral and had a great time sightseeing that day. Well, it was a few months later after that I was back in the States and was really praying about my career and where I was going to go and what was ahead for me over the next 10 to 20 years. And I felt like God brought that moment on that corner in Dublin back to me and asked again, where do you want to go? It was such an unusual thought for me. I think a lot of times we tend to think of God's will for our lives as a dot, as in that there's a certain point we're supposed to go to and just follow that. And that's certainly true. Sometimes God will say to Jonah, "I want you to go to Nineveh." And certainly if God says to us or directs us to some certain spot or point in our life, we need to follow that. But sometimes God's will is much more thought of like a giant circle. And then the thought I like here is Psalm 37 that says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." If we focus on delighting ourselves in the Lord and staying inside the bounds of that circle and seeking His will and following after Him, then there's sometimes a lot of variety, a lot of freedom that He gives us within that circle. It's not just a dot, we can go, where do you want to go? And I think a lot of us don't really explore that option and see where is it God could be taking me. I was joking around a little bit last week with some guys in a Bible study about how I think a lot of us believe in reincarnation. We think, well, someday there'll be another opportunity. Someday when I'm done with this life, there'll be another chance for me to explore and do the thing I want to do or the thing God's put on my heart. But for right now, I got to do this. And the reality is there is no reincarnation. We have one life. It is appointed for man once to die. And so there's not going to come a moment 30, 40, 50 years from now when you leave this earth and then God says, here's another chance to do what you want to do. And the point I mean by that is you have one body. You have one life. You have one timeline. And we want to take advantage of that and explore what is it God could be calling us to do that's different or that's exciting or that's in our own hearts. And so I really believe that one of the ways that God works in our lives is through our own desires and passions. So let me throw that back to you for a moment. As you start thinking about the next 10, 20 years of your life, what would it be like if you were standing on a corner and God said to you, where do you want to go? Could that be the coaching table question for you this week? Where do you want to go with God? And what if He poses that question to you? How would you begin to explore and answer that? It could be that your destiny and the way that God's going to guide and direct your life is going to be working through your own desires, through your own passions, through your own wishes as you are delighting in Him. Where do you want to go with God? I encourage you to take that question into your prayer time, into your kitchen table. I'd love to interact with you if you want to click on my email and let's start a conversation about where that question could take you. Where do you want to go with God? Well, I'll be back next week with another conversation starter for you. But until then, you're always welcome at the coaching table.